editing me is gonna hate me. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today we're gonna talk about 1989, but in books. And yes, that is the OG 1989 because obviously Taylor's version isn't out yet. But I've been thinking about this for a while and I'm pretty excited. And I tried to go through the whole album, including the deluxe tracks, although this vinyl actually only has the original tracks, but that glare is gonna kill me. I was trying to find different, when I say different books, I feel like a lot of Taylor's music is romantic and talks about relationships, and I didn't want to just have like 14 romance books, which I also couldn't do anyway because I don't read like a ton of romance. I love kind of the popular, like Emily Henry, but not a ton of romance. So I couldn't probably do that anyway without repeating them. But there are romance on here. There's also horror, and that's probably like the gist. Couple fantasy. Anyway, so we can't play Taylor's music because that's a copyright strike. But we're gonna go through the album together. We're gonna get hyped for Taylor's version. And I think once I am like comfortable with the vault tracks, I may do a part 2 to this video and include the vault tracks. But I didn't want to pick books based on song titles because like the Slut song we're all hyped for, right? But is it going to be a ballad that's going to break our hearts, or is it going to be another like shake it off dance anthem? So, and there's like no way to pick a book when you don't know. So this is my tentative list. Most of these songs I've picked one book. A couple of them I had a few options, and a couple of them had a couple honorable mentions. And I tried to keep it to only books that were on my shelf, so some of them are a bit of a stretch. There were a couple I had to pick up from the library just because for one reason or another I don't have the book with me right now, but I either planned to own it or I was like kind of on the fence. Not that it matters, but so my selections are based on what I have as opposed to like every book in the world or even necessarily every book I've ever read. The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, Welcome to New York kind of felt like I could have really picked any book where New York City is the setting. Or, and in that same vein, I could have picked any book where a character moves to New York and kind of experiencing it for the first time. But I don't know, the album, or the, well, that too, but the song is just like whimsical and fun and just this kind of like being in New York is the moment. It's the feeling, it's exciting. And Evie O'Neill is like, she gets sent to New York as a punishment, which let's not even talk about what a bizarre punishment. But she gets sent there as a punishment and recognizes immediately that it's not a punishment to be sent to New York City when you're basically out of high school. They do not talk about her schooling that I can remember. Actually, I think they do. It's just such a minor plot point. I'm pretty sure Homegirl's supposed to be in school, but it's like not a thing. So she's like 18. She gets sent to New York City to live with her uncle after kind of messing up in her hometown in Ohio. And I don't know, it kind of gives that same vibe, just like, because she gets to New York and she's just kind of like, I'm here. New York, welcome to me. So I don't, it gave the vibes. I love it. 12 out of 10 series for me. And I think it just encapsulates Welcome to New York. You by Carolyn Kepnes. And no, I will not be taking any criticism on this choice. It is perfect. That song is meant to be a catchy little romance about how Taylor has too many boyfriends. But is it not exactly Joe Goldberg's Anthem? Because you cannot convince me that I'm wrong. This is the first book I thought of when I had this plan. Like when I was like, oh, 1989 book version or whatever I called this video. I was just like, blank space, Joe Goldberg. It just is. Like, he's so obsessed with finding his next woman. There's always a blank space for her. He can fix her. He's got this. Like, there's always gonna be another you. And it's so creepy and so good and so perfect for this prompt. I'm obsessed, and no notes. Following that up with notes. The sequels all kind of suck. And it's weird. This is one of the ones I got from the library because I've been trying to own a copy because I genuinely love this book. But I cannot find a non-movie cover or a non-fake sticker version. Although I could settle for the fake sticker if I had to. I really don't want the TV cover. But I can't find it. But I have books 2 and 3. And book 2 is decent. It's the only one in the series that does not talk in like second person or whatever this book is considered, where Joe is talking to you, which is what made this first book so creepy. Book 2 doesn't do that, but it's like a decent story. Book 3, it's like Caroline realized that Joe was this anti-hero that we're rooting for. So he's like somehow less evil in book 3, but like he's still evil, but like the worst things that happen are not directly his fault. Like, I can't really talk about it, but like, I'm not saying he's innocent or a good person in that book, like not at all. It's just, he's almost along for the ride and it's weird and I didn't like it. And then book 4, I couldn't even finish. It was so bad. I mean, people liked it. And I mean, if you have read the series and you like book 3, I think you'll like book 4 just fine. But if you're like me, where they've been going downhill, don't even bother. Stop. Book 1 is really all you need. Maybe book 2 if you're feeling frosty. And I don't even know if I can fully justify this. I was gonna actually just say crave, but like more so it's charm. But if you haven't read Crave, I can't explain to you why it's charm. Because the character that I think this best encompasses style is not in book 1. So I can't explain it. But I think style is kind of where, I think the relationship that comes from charm, if you will, is the embodiment of style. But I lost the rest of that sentence. So I can't finish explaining my thought. But I feel like that relation, when I was listening to the album last night and like really kind of planning out my books, and I should have written my thought process down because this would have made this more coherent. But this just spoke to me. Okay. So it talks about kind of what I gathered from it is like the bad boy and the good girl. That's this relationship, right? And there's this kind of like rumor mill about them. Because what does he say? He says he can't keep his wild eyes on the road. She says, I've heard you've been out and about with some other girl. And he says, what you heard is true, but I can't stop thinking about you. That doesn't like fully encompass this relationship, but the idea that she has heard essentially negative things about him, and his response is like, it's true, but you don't know the whole story, and you're the only girl that I want. And like there's a strong romance being built throughout this story with the bad guy, not bad guy, but like with the bad boy versus a villain, so to speak. And so yeah, for all those reasons, I would say charm. But to get to charm, you at least have to read books 1 and 2. Actually, you could read book 1 and make this book 2, because honestly, that's kind of my thought. This should have been book 2 or a novella. I haven't read book 6 yet because I'm still kind of frosty about this one. If I had to wait like 6 months or whatever, however long this took to come out, I would not have been happy that that was the story that I got. Oh, I locked my phone. Are you ready? Finlay Donovan is killing it. Is that a weird choice? I don't care. You want to know why? Because this whole plot revolves around Finlay being hired as a hitman. Mistakenly, she's not a hitman. And she has to decide if she's really going to kill this person for money, because she needs the money, that's important, or if she's gonna just not do it, right? So, killing someone's illegal, obviously.
You say something so controversial yet so brave.
So it's kind of just like, are we out of the woods? Can she get away with it? Obviously that's not the theme of the song, but like, I feel like it works. And I guess I can't fully articulate why without spoiling some of the book, but like, you know, are we out of the woods? Are the things that we're doing, are we going to get caught? Can we get away with it? And I liked that. And I also, if I remember the lyrics correctly, because obviously I don't, I feel like even the romance subplot of it kind of worked. Not the subplot with the new romance. Because, okay, so the other reason I was thinking is because of Finlay's relationship with her ex is this kind of toxic, angry relationship where they're kind of fighting. So it's like the end of the song, remember when we hit the brakes too soon, 20 stitches in the hospital room, like that spoke to me to Finlay and her ex. Although the beginning you could kind of argue is her and her new boyfriend. That's how people speak. So, I mean, mostly though, I just really liked the idea of like, are we out of the woods? Are we clear? What is my cat doing? Can we not? I had two choices for this, okay? And they're very different. The Reader by Bernhard Schlink, I think, or Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. You really can't get more different than a World War II literary story and whatever the hell this is, right? But let me explain. All you had to do was stay. The Reader follows a teenage boy who basically teaches this older woman how to read. And they have a sexual relationship, and in the context of the story, it is not seen as a negative thing, although socially that's obviously not okay. That's not like really a big point of the story, right? But what's important to know is that this woman doesn't really learn to read well. He mostly reads to her. No, I have that all wrong. He doesn't teach her to read. He reads to her and she chooses to not learn, right? So that's all important. And in the end, she ends up, like, I believe it's told in a dual timeline, if I recall, but this is not really gonna tell me, where you're kind of seeing the boy when he's meeting this woman, and then the boy is an adult. And I think he might be a lawyer, something like that, where he runs into this woman again, and she is on trial for participating as a soldier in the Nazi army. And he is on, I believe, the opposing side. So it's a very dramatic, sad story. And the reason that I feel like it's all you had to do was stay ties into their romance, which, like, you know, you're not really rooting for it because it's a child and an adult. But she had a very difficult life. And realistically, she chose to go into the Nazi army because she felt she had no other choice. So to me, it's like, if she had stayed with this boy and learned to read and like chose the easier life, maybe not easier, but the better life, she would have had a better life. And her story is very sad. And it's a powerful book. I highly recommend it. I don't think I did it justice, but so that was one option for all you had to do was stay. The other one's a little more tongue-in-cheek. Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano is about this island that's like lost in time, for lack of a better term. They're stuck in the 1990s of sometime, the OJ trial. I forget what year that was, but they're kind of stuck in a time loop where they keep doing the same things every day. And it's very important that nobody leaves the island, and newcomers really aren't welcome. So there's not like a whole reason for why I picked it other than that's like the motto of the island is all you had to do was stay. Like if you just let this live out, it would not be a problem. Honestly, I had really high hopes for it, much like Kayla. The first chapter is so good, but then it's just, the rest of the book doesn't live up to that first chapter. Like, it's a decent story. I liked it. But like that first chapter though, oh, one of the best opening chapters, honestly. This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. It's just a quirky good time about a group of zombies in high school, and they're just going to a music festival. They just want to have a good time. They just want to shake it off, like have a good weekend. But like they're zombies at a music festival. However, it's not so crazy because in this universe they have found a way to like keep the zombies from being evil. They can just like they're heavily monitored and like, but they have like synthetic flesh to eat, and it's like a whole thing. So they just like really want to have a good weekend at Coachella. It's not Coachella, but obviously things go awry, and so they can't quite shake it off, but like they want to. It's their vibe. It's really funny. I had such a good time with this. Okay, I moved Taylor. Does she look better? I picked The Quality of Silence by Rosamund Lupton, which I really kind of struggled with this one because I didn't have a lot of books that I felt like dealt with what I felt like the song was talking about. But I picked this one because it is a mother and her deaf daughter who are searching for their lost husband in a whiteout storm. And the mom has to like drive like a semi-truck. But like the roads are like unpassable because she was gonna get someone to drive her, but she couldn't because the roads were so bad. So she like hijacked a car or something. I don't think that's exactly what happened, but like her husband's missing. They can't find him, and the daughter and the mom are fighting because the daughter wants to communicate in her way and her dad would communicate with her in that way, and the mom really struggled essentially having a deaf daughter. So there's a lot of that conversation going on. Meanwhile, you're finding out that like things weren't going great at home. There's a lot of tension, and the mom and the husband had a big argument, like right, you know, off screen before the book happens. So there's that guilt of just like, I wish you would call me back, and I'm sorry that we fought, and if like I had a do-over, that kind of concept. And I do think that this talked about that well. It's been a couple of years since I've read it, so I'm basing this off memory, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's got a lot of good conversation, I think, or did when I read it. I picked Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard because it's about a relationship that has soured. And I think this is a good pick for that. If you know, you know. I do have a soft spot for this though. This is one of the first books I read that took the rug out from under my feet. So it's kind of one of those, I don't know if I would have felt the same way. Because I read a lot of thrillers, a lot of things start to become more obvious. So I don't know if this book would give me the same shock today as it did the first time I read it, but I've got a huge soft spot for it. On the other hand, the series goes downhill and I hated her second series, so we're not friends anymore. This is a fun one, and I don't remember if this book is good. My Name is Memory by Anne Brashares. Brashares? I don't actually know how to say her last name, and since I've been reading her since I was in high school, And the whole bra shares, like I was 5 years old and bra, ha ha ha. It's not that funny, but I was a kid. So I don't know how to say her name, but I say bra shares. This is a book about a couple that keeps meeting up throughout their different lives, like reincarnation, and they're always trying to find each other. And it's just got this promise of just like every time we get reincarnated, I will find you and we will be together. And I knew you from a dream. And like, I just remember it being so emotional and so, I was rooting for them, man. Like there was always something going on and it was really good. And I think it ends on just like the cycles never end. The cycle's never done. So you could kind of like keep reading it almost in a loop if you really wanted to. But I did read this like 10 years ago. And I will say The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants did not age as well as you think it did. So I don't know how this one feels now. Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a fun one. I picked it because it's a fake dating, which we always love. And I think that song is, I think it works with fake dating, just like a manual. It feels like because she's like, oh, this is what you do if you want to get her. There's also a grand gesture feeling to the end, which I also feel like works with that song, where I can't explain why there's a grand gesture or who does it, but like, God. Just every time I was listening to this song, it just felt like someone doing the big romantic gesture. And there are probably other books that do that better, but this is just the first one that I could think of. Plus, we do stan a by Queen. Was a lot more of a cozy romance, right? Like when I hear that song, I want to curl up with a blanket, maybe some hot cocoa, and be cozy, like with the cats, and just, that's what I wanted. So I was like, what romance makes me feel cozy? And if your answer is anything but Heartstopper, you're wrong, and that's okay. But I mean, is there anything cuter or cozier than Heartstopper? There just isn't. I also kind of thought about not doing romance, even though this love, like, you kind of need the romance. But just another book that kind of gave me the cozies was Witchlings by Claribel Ortega. That is also just a very cute story, and it doesn't have any romance. It is also middle grade, if that is your thing, but I highly recommend it. I had a great time with that one too. I thought about a couple different things. None of them were like appropriate. Tell me why I picked Battle Royale by Kosha Takami. Because I know places like where we can hide. Is that so insensitive? Oh my God, it's not real. So that's it. All of the things I could come up with were just like places to hide. So there was an honorable mention for Jurassic Park. It's not that funny. But I thought it was hilarious. And then also the Wayward Children series on a slightly more serious note, or really any Portal fiction now that I'm thinking about it. But we're going with Battle Royale, which is, I mean, the father of the Battle Royale story, right? It's where Hunger Games spawned from, which spawned everything else. I mean, obviously Battle Royale also spawned all of those things. I'm not giving all of Hunger Games the credit. But to the American audience, who were most likely aware of Hunger Games first, but that was absolutely inspired by Battle Royale. And this is so good. And I mean, granted, the chapters are fairly short, which I didn't show you, but you're kind of going back and forth between following like one specific kid and then everybody else. And like the Hunger Games, it is a killing game that is monitored and played with children against their will. And this one is like they just take a random school, like it's like a it's a roulette, if you will, where they basically just pick one random class and then they send that class off to wherever. I don't recall if the parents are aware that this is like, I think this is just like a thing that the government does, where they're just like, sorry, your kid went to the battle school today or whatever. So they do it once a year. And despite the fact that you really don't get to spend a lot of time with really any character, but like even our main character, I don't think that cheapened the experience for me, just because, you know, like Hunger Games, you've got your protagonist and you've got everybody else. You're not really ever going to be attached to the everybody else. And I don't know. I really liked it. It's for, you know, 700, almost 700 pages. Like, I went through this much faster than I anticipated. I wanted to find a book that talked about an abusive relationship. So I feel like My Dark Vanessa is an obvious choice. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know if it really fits the vibe. I think it very well might. But because I haven't read it, I didn't want to put it on here. So I picked Dreamland by Sarah Dessen, and my library only had the ugliest cover I've ever seen in my life. So that was disappointing. I have a copy coming to me, but I don't have it yet. And it's not going to be here before the video goes live. So unfortunately, we're working with this cover and I hate it. But this follows a young girl who gets into a relationship with an abusive man. I say man, I do think they're the same age, but he's disgusting and we hate him. And it shows just a lot of the complexity of a teenager being in that kind of relationship. And I read it in high school, and I mean, I feel like everyone on BookTube has probably read Sarah Dessen at some point. And I thought it worked really well. And the idea of just coming clean from that relationship, it works. I mean, is Alice in Wonderland not the obvious choice? Taylor obviously loves the story of Alice in Wonderland with all the little nods to it. So that's kind of the obvious choice. Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Like, you could read those, you could do it. They're great stories. They're worth reading if you've never read them. But I'm gonna pick the BookTube darling, Every Heart a Doorway, because it's the better Alice in Wonderland. I picked The People We Meet on Vacation because this song gave very much friends to lovers, where it just kind of sneaks up on you. You're just, all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, I am in love. And I feel like that really worked here. I went rogue again, and I picked Bunny by Mona Awad, or The Honey by Ryan LaSala, because both follow these basically cults of women who invite a new person into their mix and don't give a shit what you or anyone else thinks. They're just gonna kind of keep doing their thing. It's got some Shake It Off vibes, but you're having a good time. Like, it's horror, but like it fits, right? Okay. Yeah, but that's all I have for now. And let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree with any of these, and I will see you guys in a video in the future.